Hey, before we get started, just a couple things from the team here at Voice. First off, we really want to thank everyone who gave during our summer fundraising campaign. We exceeded our goal, which is amazing, and it helps with everything we do here at Voice. That includes our Parents' Guide to Public Schools. That's the second thing. If you are navigating San Diego schools just to learn more about them or to find the right school for your kid or someone you know, this is the guide for you. You can get it at vosd.org/schools, and there you'll see upcoming events where we can give you an overview of the guide and San Diego schools, and we'll have experts to answer your questions. The next one is September 17th, and again, you can see all that at vosd.org/schools. Thanks again, and here's the show.
Thanks for joining us at the Voice of San Diego podcast in partnership with News Radio 600 Kogo. I am Scott Lewis, the CEO and editor-in-chief at Voice. I'm joined by Andrew Keatts, assistant editor, and our managing editor, Sara Libby. What is up, dudes?
Hello.
It's a podcast.
We just had a 15-minute argument about whether we saw Sarah Jacobs, potential congressional candidate, at the coffee shop the other day.
Right. We determined
Maybe.
30% chance it was not her who you had a full conversation with.
And therefore, 30% chance that there's a very confused young woman out there. Okay. We have a full show for you this week. Susan Davis, San Diego's congressional representative for the 53rd District, announced she's retiring. Everybody's phones blew up in local politics that day. She will not be seeking re-election in 2020. We are going to hear from her directly about why she ruined Todd Gloria's life. We'll talk about the political domino effect that could come from this news. And finally, last but not least, San Diego's City Beat's Seth Combs, the editor, was pushed out last week. We'll talk about what's going on with the local alt weekly and its new owner. Congresswoman Susan Davis served 10 terms representing California's 53rd District. The district reaches from Mission Hills to Santee down to Otay Ranch. Have you guys ever looked at the map of the districts, by the way?
It's very weird.
It's kind of like a hurricane. There's like the 52nd is on the top and wraps around but goes around to downtown.
52 is the weirdest one to me. That's the one I always forget what it actually covers.
And then the 53rd takes the north part of downtown and wraps around like that, and then all the way down. And then the 51st comes out the other way and wraps.
So I just want to add, you're doing a lot with your hands right now, and this is primarily a audio medium.
Yeah. Well, it's worth looking at the three districts. We were able to get exclusive audio from the local Democratic Party headquarters when the news broke.
Hello.
Hi, is Sarah there?
This is Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. It's Susan Davis.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining us.
Sure.
Thank you so much for joining us.
If you could just start with sort of walking us through your decision making, and in particular kind of when you decided that this was the week to announce you were retiring.
You know, I can tell you that it really has all to do about me and what I'd like to do over the next 10 years. I first, of course, want to finish serving, and it'll be at least 16 months. We finish up actually the first week in January once a new class takes over. When I thought about what I want to do post-Congress, I really did look at the next two, the next 2 years, the next term as well. And that really ends up being about, 4 years out. And it's hard to make a commitment that long for me right now at where I am. And so I started believing that I wanted to do some other things here in San Diego. I've met so many wonderful people that are active and involved in a lot of issues. And often I think about, I'd like to do this or that. So I really do want to have a life after Congress. And I felt that if I waited too long, I couldn't do that.
What do you want to? You said you have plans for the next 10 years. What do you want to do?
I don't know yet. but I want to explore it because I really have been exposed to a lot of different things.
It had sort of been the conventional wisdom in town for years that Todd Gloria, your former staffer, was sort of waiting to take a shot at this seat when you might retire. Can you talk at all about when you let him know about your decision making and what kind of conversations you've had with him?
Yeah, well, Todd's been making his own decisions for some time, and that's great. I think that he made a decision about the city council. He made a decision about the state legislature, and now he's made a decision about the mayor. I think he has certainly more opportunity to do great things for San Diego. I mean, it's just being the mayor is actually a wonderful place to be, and I think he has the energy and the aptitude to do that. I know that that contest is going to be a lively one. I'm sure. I actually respect both of the candidates, the main candidates. But clearly, I've had an experience working with Todd for many years. I've known him since he was in 9th grade, and we've developed a relationship over the years and really respect one another a great deal.
What are you most proud of in your term as in Congress? I'm sure there was a lot of things handled behind the scenes that maybe have never made news. When you look back, what are you going to carry with you as your most proud moments?
Yeah, well, probably there are a number of moments in different ways. I think one of the agonizing decisions that I had to make, and fairly early on because I came to Congress in 2001, and you might say that by the time I started figuring some things out and had been on the Armed Services Committee for a good few months, 9/11 happened. And that changed so much for me. It changed a lot of what we did in those early years and the opportunity that I had to be with our troops. I then, because we had another issue, the Iraq War, that came to us, I actually spent a lot of time talking to people about whether that was the right thing to do. And I came to the conclusion that it was not, and voted against the Iraq War. That was a difficult vote. And I continued to talk to people and work through many of those issues. At the same time, I really did support our troops who were in harm's way and felt that that was an important decision to make as well. As the personnel chair of Armed Services, a few years later, I then had the opportunity to engineer and work with others to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And I did that because I was meeting people here in San Diego and also in the field who would come to me and they would tell me what it was like for them to be serving under these circumstances. I talked to those individuals, those leaders in our military community who came to visit me, who were higher ranking or mid-ranking, whenever they came to see me about issues. And because I was a new chairman, they all came by. And we began talking to them about that. In fact, I remember one or two of them, after we finished our conversation, and I hadn't brought up the issue, they brought it up because they said to me, I know you want to talk about Don't Ask, Don't Tell and what I think about it. And they would give me their opinion. Some of them were positive, some of them were negative. But it helped me to really understand what the issues were. And having gone through that process, I was ready to champion that issue.
So you mentioned that you've got about 16 months left. What's your biggest priority or something you're hoping to accomplish in that time?
Well, I made the decision last term to make a shift from being a subcommittee chair on the Armed Services Committee and the Personnel Committee that I had chaired for a number of years, or been ranking, and I shifted over to another committee in which I was second to the chairman, and I was chose to be the subcommittee chair of higher education. I did that because I know that we need to get a better handle on affordability and access to higher education. But in this process, I've also learned how important it is that young people and people who are changing careers can have better options. And one of the tools to do that is to have more apprenticeship programs throughout our community, our state, and even our nation. So that's what I've been focused on, gathering the best ideas from my colleagues that I've come across. I've worked with this internationally, trying to understand what other countries do. And I've come to believe that we're far behind in this area. And so I've been working on that for the last few years, and I'm certainly hoping that in the next 16 months, we'll be able to move forward with a piece of legislation that really embodies the best ideas of all of my colleagues, Democrat, Republican, because everybody's been exposed to this.
When you look at who should take over the seat, what kind of quality? I'm sure you're not going to announce here who you endorse.
Although you're welcome to.
You are welcome to. But what will you look for in somebody who would want to take this seat now?
Well, I've said I really will look for someone who I believe is going to have the public interest at heart, not their personal interest. And it's important to me to have a chance to talk with people. I hope that they'll be willing to talk to me if they're interested and get a sense of how they're going to conduct themselves, because they'll be my representative too. And I want somebody who really understands that this is a job of public service. It's an opportunity to connect people with resources in their district, in helping one another to really be the best that they can be, and to be able to communicate how important each and every constituent is. And so that's who I'm going to be looking for. Maybe I'm looking for somebody like me, but I'm also looking for somebody who is just really down to earth also in the way they approach the job. It's nice to be in elective office, and there are definitely is a great honor, but it's not an easy job. You know, I hope that people understand that they don't go into it, into it blindly.
All right, Congresswoman Susan Davis, thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for checking in. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a lot to talk about now. What happens now? We are now each going to draft a candidate who we think is going to run for the seat, or I guess 3 each, right?
3 each.
We're going to do a little point system. We are not rooting for these people, to be clear. If we pick somebody, it doesn't mean we want them to win. It is a test of our punditry prowess. So if they end up running, if you pick somebody and they end up running, you get 3 points. I'm sorry, if they end up running and winning, you get 3 points.
Okay.
If they end up running, you get 2 points. If they end up running for a seat that is vacated by somebody who runs, you get 1 point.
Yes.
Got it?
Yes, that last bit is a nod to the fact that part of the chaos of this is the domino game of that could open up because of this
Yeah, it's
retirement.
like,
I guess actually musical chairs is probably a better analogy than dominoes.
I think dominoes is, because I don't know who gets left out in this version, right? So when Bob Filner ran for mayor,
Yeah.
he opened up his congressional seat. Juan Vargas took that seat. Ben Hueso took Juan Vargas' seat in the Senate. And then Lorena Gonzalez took Ben Hueso's seat in the Assembly.
Yes.
And so that's the kind of thing that can happen when one of these big seats opens up. Okay. Just a couple things to know if you're playing along at home. This is a safe seat for Democrats. Hillary Clinton won it by like 30 points, 34 points in 2016 over President Donald Trump. Governor Newsom won in last year by like 30 points himself over John Cox, the Republican. So it's not the most Democratic seat in the land, but it's pretty close.
It's one of them, yeah.
It's not probably going to be seriously contested by a Republican, though there will obviously be a Republican that wins and might even make it to the final general election. So there are 2 candidates running, Jose Caballero and Joaquin Vasquez, so we're not going to draft them.
Yeah.
Because they're already in.
That would be very cheap.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to randomly pick one of you to start, and that'll be Sarah.
Oh, great.
Doesn't seem random to me.
So, Sarah, who are you going to draft first to run for the 53rd Congressional District?
I think I am going to go with my fellow Sarah with no H, who we did not see at coffee this week, Sarah Jacobs.
Sarah Jacobs. That was one of the first names that came up. She very clearly wanted to run for Congress in Scott Peters' seat if he were to run for mayor.
Yes.
She previously did run for Congress in the 49th district against Mike Levin.
She's been working hard since then to ingrain herself with the Democratic Party and activists and such. So, great pick.
Let me say one thing about her that would be beneficial is so Susan Davis has retired well into this cycle. Mm-hmm. And one thing that has been explained to me this morning is that fundraising typically becomes very difficult around Thanksgiving through Christmas. People have things going on. It's not a great time to ask people for money.
And that's when they're, in particular, donating to nonprofit news organizations.
Ideally, please give us your money during that time period. And so fundraising tends to dry up there. And then the race happens just after that in March, beginning of March. And so we're already in September. So it basically means you have like 2 months to raise, something like $500,000 is probably like the cost of getting in. Mm-hmm. So fundraising could be real difficult here, all of which is to say somebody who is capable of funding their own campaign with personal wealth is in a decided advantage.
Yeah, and last time around she kind of spun a tax on her personal wealth into an advantage and said it's anytime a young woman has the ability to self-fund a race, we should celebrate that and take advantage of it and not like demonize somebody for being rich.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, my turn?
Yes.
Is it my turn?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to take Georgette Gomez.
Okay.
Council President Georgette Gomez is, I think we've probably talked a lot in the last 6 months about what a powerful position she is in the Democratic Party right now. She's council president with a supermajority on the council. She is MTS board chair, all of which means she has a lot going on right now, which I think if there's an argument against her running, it would be that. She's kind of the lead person on this MTS ballot measure. She's got a lot of things going on in City Hall, but congressional races only come around every once in a while. Two of the top people you would expect to, or three of the top people, I should say, that you would expect to run for this are Tony Atkins, Lorena Gonzalez, and Todd Gloria, all of which said that they're not running. I think that in the end, there's a good chance that she may make the calculation that it's just too good an opportunity to pass up.
Yeah, and I think that, those same reasons that she's got a lot going on also work in the other way, and that they're good resume points. She's council president now. She has MTS board chair now, and that all looks good to voters. It's also interesting because we've talked so much about the domino issue in relation to the people in the state legislature who could potentially run. Like you said, Tony Atkins and Lorena have said they're out, but Georgette would kick off a whole different, dynamic in terms of
City
it would
council.
Be kind of a different crop of people who might be interested in running for council.
Yes, exactly. And council presidency for among the people who are already on council.
All right. I think that it's starting to be interesting who's not saying that they're not running.
Sure is.
Yes.
And so with this pick, I'm going to pick somebody who I do not think will run. But since he's on the board still, I feel like I should. It's like just,
You got to take it.
You got to take the player that's up there. You might not have a slot for him, but you got to do that. And so I'm going to pick
Packers taking Aaron Rodgers when they still have Brett Favre,
right.
for instance.
Mm-hmm. So I will pick, because of that, Nathan Fletcher.
Yes.
Lorena Gonzalez, his wife, said she's not running, but he has not said that. His district overlaps a lot of the district. He's county supervisor for most of the central San Diego area, and he performed obviously very well there last year. And it seems like he could probably pull something together. I do not think he will. I think it just doesn't seem to add up to me why he would. But I also have a really diminutive view of what a Congress member's job is. And So I don't think anybody would run.
Seems like
like
no one should do it.
Yeah.
Like it just sits empty,
Yeah.
like a position on the mobility board or something. You're
Now,
I don't want that.
That said, most of what people don't like about Congress is that they have to fundraise constantly for
travel back and forth across the country.
for very competitive seats, and they don't have much power. This is the kind of seat you could sit in for quite some time. Do well. You can't just ignore your district, but then you could rise up to leadership. You could have significant platforms. So there's no question somebody like Georgette, somebody like Tony Atkins or whatever could have success there in a different way. But that's the one I'm going to pick because it's open. Sarah.
All right. I'm a little unsure of my pick, but I'm going to go with Assemblywoman Shirley Weber. Ooh. I think with Atkins saying she's for sure out, Weber is probably the highest profile person who, if she were to get in the race, would essentially clear the field
I agree.
and be a lock to win.
Yes.
And so it's sort of unclear to me what her next move is, regardless, after she's done in the assembly. And so with this being open, maybe she's got some huge victories under her belt in the last few years with the police shooting reform bill being signed. So,
Yeah. So I was followed last night. Maybe you guys were too, but by a draft Shirley Weber account that somebody had created.
Oh, okay.
There's that out there. There's also a draft Georgette Gomez account I should have mentioned during that section. Shirley Weber. It's late in a political career to start a career in D.C. is one potential negative, but she's high profile for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I will take somebody who is already running for office and would simply have to jump over and change that office. City Councilman Chris Ward, who is currently running for the assembly seat being vacated by Todd Gloria. So I think that you're already running, you're already leaving your current job. It's still early enough. You've got some money. You could just kind of move things over and try out another seat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fine. I think he's dying to get to Sacramento. That's why I wouldn't pick him. I think he loves it there. He knows everybody there.
Yeah,
wants to be there.
Former chief of staff for Marty Block.
Yeah.
People should know. The one thing I would say, though, if a man, Chris Ward or otherwise, ran in that seat, our entire congressional district would be men.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that changes my next pick. I was going to pick another white heterosexual man, but I'm not gonna.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, I'm going to go with Shirley Weber's daughter, Dr. Akilah Weber, city council member in La Mesa.
Great
Yeah,
pick.
it's
Great
good.
pick.
In La Mesa, it seems like she's got some potential, and it's worth picking in the second round, I think.
Yeah, I think if she were to run, it would be kind of like a why not try it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
She doesn't have anything to lose.
Yeah, she just started her political career. She's already a doctor. Like, the seat's open. Why not take a shot?
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, your third, Sarah?
Woo. All right, I am going to go with another member of the La Mesa City Council, Colin Parent.
Mm-hmm. Parent dropped to you.
Yeah. He just seems like an ambitious guy who wants to move up in his career, and similar deal where it's open, why not take a shot?
La Mesa seems like a prime area for this district. Like, there's a Hillcrest and there's La Mesa. It seems like two sort of centers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. I got a little dark horse here. I think this would be an interesting one. There is a deceptive amount of South Bay in this district.
Okay.
Although South Bay is not typically thought of as a place here. So I'm going to say Steve Padilla, Chula Vista City Councilman Steve Padilla.
Good pick.
Okay.
Interesting. Good pick.
Yeah.
All right, let me round this out. Raquel Vasquez,
Ooh.
mayor of Lemon Grove.
Yes.
She seems ambitious.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just leave it there.
All right.
Some of the folks we didn't mention, real quick.
Yeah.
Former City Councilman David Alvarez.
Mm-hmm.
potential seat switchers. Kenya Taylor, who's running for supervisor right now in District 2 of the county. Nora Vargas, who's running in the South Bay City Council or Supervisor District, and former City Councilwoman Marty Emerald.
Yes, good list. On the other side of the break, we sit down with Seth Combs. Seth was abruptly fired last week from his post at San Diego City Beat. He was the editor-in-chief. The Alt Weekly has a new owner, and we'll talk about what happened and the future of the local magazine. Stay with us.
Voice of San Diego is a media partner of Pop-Up Magazine, a live magazine created for a stage, screen, and a live audience. Come see the sensational night of true stories featuring your favorite writers, radio producers, and comedians at the Observatory North Park on September 23rd. Tickets and information at popupmagazine.com.
Seth Combs, the one-time editor at San Diego City Beat. Thanks for taking the time to join us.
Yeah, no problem.
So how's your week been?
I'm really, I have bittersweet emotions about Susan Davis not running again.
Why?
I've since I moved here in, I think, like 2000, she's the only person I've ever voted for Congress. It's going to be very strange bubbling in or however, we do it in the next election. So that'll be interesting. But, other than that, I got let go from my job. No big deal.
So tell us what happened. We've read a little bit. What was your day like? How did it all come down?
Well, I mean, as most people probably maybe know already, the paper was bought about a little over a month ago, by a Arizona-based conglomerate of neighborhood newspapers and websites. It wasn't immediate, but after about a week or two, it was very clear that they weren't particularly interested in what we had to do, at least editorially speaking, and that the main focus would be on, getting money.
How did you hear from them first? Was it you heard about the sale and then you got a call from them like, hey?
Oh, no. I mean, we were to be fair to them and the former owner of the paper, Southland Publishing, we were the first to know. So the president or the head publisher of Southland came into the office. I think it was on the 31st of July. But and they just kind of told us hey, as far as we know, nothing's going to change. It's all good, and kind of reassured us that everybody still has their jobs and they're going to be paying us as usual. But we needed to do all these things in order for that to happen. And then again, over the next few weeks.
What were all these things?
Just basically we were being let go by Southland because it was dissolving, and that we needed to sort of sign new contracts with Times Media Group. And because we were technically new hires, they had us under that sort of 90-day grace period where, they didn't have to give us cause to let us go, which is actually fairly standard, to be fair to them.
And so last week or I guess it was
Friday.
Yeah,
it was last week.
You showed up to work, and then they asked you to go to coffee.
So they took me out to coffee, and the senior vice president of sales was just very matter of fact. Was like, here's your last check. Today's your last day. You need to go as soon as possible.
Was the publisher of the paper the previous ownership structure and management is he still there?
No. I think you might be thinking of Kevin Hellman, who was the publisher for well over a decade from the very beginning, actually, and he retired last year. And I don't think one had anything to do with the other. Who knows? Maybe, but I think that he was just tired and burnt out, as were many of the people who worked there.
And so when you don't know of other City Beat employees that have been let go, do you?
I don't want to speculate, but everybody is being let go at the other papers. Ventura, Pasadena, everything that Southland previously owned. As far as I know, the art director at City Beat is still there. She texted me. I don't feel like I'm betraying anybody's trust here because right now she just really doesn't care anymore.
Yeah.
But she's very concerned that she's going to be let go this week.
Mm-hmm. It sounds, though, there was an issue that came out since your departure. It seems like they haven't, as of yet, abandoned the premise of City Beat as an all-weekly music, entertainment, arts, and then even some of the, reporting. Obviously, they kept some of the planned things that you had going. Do you though still think there'll be a major shift?
Well, the way to look at the new issue is about 40 to 50% of it was stuff that I had already finished up, okay, before Friday when they let me go. So the stuff that's like, for example, the cover story on the drag queen story hour that's happening at You Belong Here. It's a great thing, by the way. That was something that was planned, well before they let me go. There's going to be some stories here and there in the next few weeks that, were holdovers from when I was there. I think the best way to look at it is possibly like the music section and the art section and see what they do there. The music section this week is pretty bad. I mean, it's like, because basically I was going to be doing all of that this week, and because I wore many hats over there, as you know. And, it's like a repurposed article from one of their other papers about Lenny Kravitz. And Lenny Kravitz is, no shade to Lenny Kravitz fans, but it's not something that we cover. So I do, to answer your question more specifically, I do anticipate it being a magazine or a newspaper that is filled with content written by interns and people who are writing for the for exposure model, and content that's being produced in Arizona to run in all of their papers.
When your background is in arts coverage.
Sure. Yes, definitely.
Right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
How did you start?
The first publication I ever wrote for was City Beat way back in 2004, and
music,
music and actually to somewhat pat myself on the back. One of the first non-music articles I did for them was covering the 2004 Republican National Convention in New York. I think the name of it was, or I think the title of the article was, I went to the RNC and came back like a nihilist or something like that. So I've always followed politics and I've always loved politics, but I never wrote about it, with exception of a few articles here or there.
What did you learn in that process of not only trying to learn about the politics, but actually become a leading, you wanted to take the mantle and become a voice of influence in politics, and you had to do that rather rapidly. What did you learn through that process?
Well, to be honest, Scott, I was never really given the opportunity to become fully entrenched in it, because we were always trying to throw together a paper with the least amount of support from the publisher and from the powers that be who handled the purse strings. I really wanted, for the past almost 3 years, wanted to give politics everything I had, and really dive deep on stuff that you guys are doing such a great job doing here. And I really wanted to, I wanted to give you guys a run for your money sometimes, and I wanted you guys to look at us and be like, oh, okay, City Beat's back at it. Like they're actually a competitor now with us on the news beat. But I couldn't. I was wearing too many hats. I was doing the calendar section, I was doing the music section. I was still, and a lot of that is on me as well, because like I just knew how to do that, and I could assign people like, hey, like here's this arts article you can do. I was going to do it myself, but you go do it. And then I would have to sort of hold their hand through it because I already knew about it. Mm-hmm. And I'm not patting myself on the back here. It just came naturally to me. So I was never really fully able to give news and give politics like everything I had. I tried my best, don't get me wrong. And there were a lot of all-nighters and sleepless nights, and I feel really good right now, to be honest, because like I've just gotten over the last week, I've just been able to holy crap, I did a lot over there.
What are you going to do?
I don't know. I mean, I was just joking with somebody about it on Instagram just now. Just I don't know, maybe move to Wyoming and do the novel I always wanted to do or something like that. But I've gotten some people have reached out. Some of them are very intriguing offers. Some of them are sort of bizarre. Mm-hmm. And I'll speak to those soon enough, I guess.
People still bring this up. We had an interesting interaction on Twitter about this new law about freelancing and
AB5,
and whether, and just quick briefing for people who aren't following it. There's a law that could make it very hard for freelance journalists to regularly contribute to any kind of publication. So you can still probably participate with some freelancers up to a few dozen times a year. But if you're doing it every week, that person may have to be an employee or be let go. And so you went through that whole discussion. You were really invested in understanding, because City Beat's model in many ways depended on a lot of freelancers on a regular basis. And so I guess now looking at it from a little bit of a place of distance, do you think that model is sustainable?
As with any sort of law like this or labor law like this, I know that there will be workarounds. I know that there will be publications who find ways to make it happen, so to speak. Now, I want to be very clear, and I've made this very clear to the bill's author, Lorena Gonzalez, Assemblywoman Gonzalez, forgive me, that I was supportive of the bill in spirit. I absolutely do agree with the vast majority of the bill. My concern was that there really are freelance writers who loved what they do. They love the freedom. They love the autonomy of being their own boss. And Jackie Bryant, the City Beats cannabis writer, for example, is one of those people. And she's, a little bit more outspoken about AB5 than I am. But there are other people, such as Glenn Heath, who's the City Beat film critic, who has a job. But he writes about film just because he's passionate about it. Now, under AB5, well, not the most current version of it, but when we got into that thing, and when I got into it with Assemblywoman Gonzalez, I was just trying to explain to them, a lot of these people just write because they're passionate about the subject. And for me to say to them, hey, we can't use you anymore unless we hire you as an employee. What does that even mean? Do they have to come into the office to do their work? And they're not going to be able to do that because they have jobs, they have regular 9-to-5s, and then they just, go home at night and write about film or whatever the case may be. So I had issues with it in that regard. Now, if it passes as is, I don't think that it will affect, I'm speculating here. This is all, based on the idea of what I think City Beat will become. I don't think it will affect City Beat because they're going to be farming out much of the content either in Arizona or to Arizona writers, or they're going to be using much of, they'll find, I think that even as it is right now, they're still going to find ways to work around it, and they'll still be able to use, as I mentioned before, the right for exposure model that, magazines like Locale or somebody like that does, where they're not paying anybody at all. There's no W-9 involved. It's just hey, you're writing content for us for free, and you're doing it because you're just a hungry writer and you want your name out there.
All right, Seth Combs,
yes,
he's a former editor of City Beat. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to the Voice of San Diego podcast, the most popular political affairs podcast recorded in downtown San Diego. And thanks to everyone who made our summer campaign a success. We exceeded our fundraising goal. A lot of people who donated mentioned this show specifically and my influence on it. So thank you to everyone who gave. It means a lot, and it has a big impact on everything we do here at Voice San Diego. That was a joke. I like to use my ego as a joke. Yeah. I'm Scott Lewis, editor-in-chief. Andrew Keatts is assistant editor. Sara Libby's managing editor. And this show was produced by Nate John, Adriana Heldies, and Megan Wood. We will talk to you next week.
Megan? Hello.
What's up?
Whoa.
Thank you for joining us on the Voice of San Diego podcast in partnership with News Radio 600 Kogo.
Hi, Megan.
Hi. Oh, this is a test. Okay.
We've got Megan
Hi,
Wood,
everybody.
our producer, on the line.
Megan, are you going to run for Congress?
I am running, yes.
Okay. What is your top priority about
Oh,
mailboxes? In particular about mailboxes.
Yeah, will you write a bill about mailboxes? Or multiple bills?
Is that a thing?
So there's
Oh.
it's actually really interesting. There's not a lot of communities in the country
Oh, God,
where
we're going to do it.
you you ask you ask people, the mail carriers, to bring the mail up to your door. There's like a new standard, of course, where you have the mailbox on the street so they can just drive up. And so she passed a bill, or tried to pass a bill, that protected those homes that allow for that, like come all the way to the door situation. So it's a really interesting dynamic, actually.
Do you have work to do, Megan?
You guys want some guests? You want to be on the Voice of San Diego podcast?
All right, we're done. Thank you.
What was that?